Hey.
Hello. Okay, who are
Hello.
you? Who are you? What the hell is this thing doing here?
So we're the BitRobot Foundation, and we are building open robotics on Solana. And so here you can see a Unitree G1. This is one of our bots we're featuring at activation at the venue today. And so we're battling. We had Roger Sanatoli. We had, I guess today we have a big lineup. So we have Melton versus Cindy. We've got an NFT Battle Royale. So every day, a number of these fights. And these are also being used for robotics R&D on Solana.
Well, I saw it try to attack a fan yesterday. Should we be afraid here? Was that you on the controls that was doing it?
Get too close to the ring and needs to fight back a little bit.
So what part of this are you guys powering? You're not building the robots, right? You're building what specifically?
So we're working on a number of things. So inside of robotics, you could sort of break this down into like 3 different phases. There's sort of like the hardware side, which we don't really touch so much for like the humanoids, but we do work on the data side. So we help create the data assets that you would use to then train policies, which is the second part. And then the last piece is like evaluating those policies. So if you think about like Tesla self-driving, sort of the magic of the Tesla story is they can create these new models, put them on a giant fleet of robots and go evaluate to see are you in like level 2 or level 5. For us, what we want to do is first create the data assets so people can train the policies, then make it possible to use those data assets to create more capable robots, and then third, actually put those policies on like a giant fleet of distributed robots to see like have we actually solved physical intelligence.
So what is sort of the unique approach you guys are taking here? It's a very exciting area to be building in, but I think you're using the word open here in I think a very important way.
Yeah, so we're coordinating and crowdsourcing resources from around the world. So think teleoperators, so people that are piloting the bots, like people that are uploading video to train the bots, compute, hardware, and we're enabling anyone to contribute to robotics research and development. And we're using the blockchain, specifically Solana, for attribution and payments.
Can you paint the picture for us where we are on this journey towards physical intelligence? Like how close are we? I've talked to people in China who tell me we're way closer than people in North America think.
Yeah.
So I'd love a...
Well, so, okay, it depends on what you mean by physical intelligence, because I think, like, if we're saying, like, the full C3PO version of the future, I think that's still a little bit of a ways out, but in the version of, like, robots are doing more and more useful things, that's actually much closer. So I'd say we're on, like, the upward tick of, like, the inflection point. And I think actually self-driving is maybe like a great paradigmatic example of like a thing that is mind-blowing to someone who, if you talk to them like a decade ago, but now if you go talk to someone in SF, it's like kind of normalized. And I think we're going to see that in other domains. So there's robotics companies that are now creating generalized policies for just simple things like folding laundry, which are actually like quite challenging robotic tasks, but are now actually getting solved. And so I think in the next, call it like 1 to 3, maybe 5 years, you're going to see more and more generalization of these things. And so robots coming more and more into our lives, doing useful things that actually offload real tasks. And then as those stack up on top of each other, you'll have a robot that can actually do end-to-end very complicated things. And so like that's sort of like the stepping stones that we're going through.
So where do you think this is going to come into our lives first?
That's a great question. I mean, I'll give my opinion, and I'm sure, Amanda, you have one. I think we're actually going to see like robots that come into our homes sooner than people think. They won't do everything that you want them to do, but they will be able to do some of your chores. And I think doing some of your chores is actually going to be meaningful because we're going to start normalizing this idea of like, I have a device that just sits in a closet, but like pops out at 3 a.m. to like do the dishes or fold the laundry or all these things. And so just an idea that like, there's things that were on your like plate that are just gone, and it'll be much more normalized to just like assume those will be done asynchronously.
Okay, so the thing that scares me about that, I think we saw a company announce a big raise and come out with a robot recently that's remote operated. Like there's no chance I'm letting someone into my home and seeing everything. So like what is and then even with autonomy, like they're clearly filming everything in my home. So like tell me about like the privacy piece here.
Yeah, so there's different parts to this. So there's like 3 main types of data collection people use in training policies. And if you talk to roboticists, you'll get 10 different answers if you talk to 10 different researchers of like, what do we need to solve this? This is actually why BitRobot is structured as a network of subnets, because we don't think it makes sense to put all your chips on one of these domains, just put them on all of them and let sort of like the market figure out what works. And so the 3 domains are teleoperation, which is like human controls robot, egocentric video, which is like human wears a cap to film themselves doing all the tasks and then figure out how to convert between human to robot. and then simulation, which is like throw it all in a GPU cluster and eventually it'll figure it out. So yeah, like the 1x approach is like very teleop focused, but there's other teams that are doing this much more with like egocentric video. So I don't know if you saw Sunday Robotics.
I don't think so.
This is another one that went a little bit viral because they solved a bunch of other hard problems that people didn't think were super easy to do. So they were like loading dishwashers with like fragile items like glasses. And that's challenging because like a robot doesn't have our finger sensors. So like it doesn't know how hard to squeeze stuff. So like putting in a glass and not breaking it is actually hard to do on a repeated basis. But the way that they solved this is they actually built these custom gloves. And so they just got like hundreds of people to wear the gloves. And like with camera level data, they can like now just see like exactly how hard or like how close to like put the thing. And those are the exact same hands that then they put on the robot. So the policy is like directly transferring. So like I actually think that's like a centralized version of a DeepIn network where like what they've done is they just got a bunch of people in SF to wear these gloves to solve like how do we create the data asset that we need to train these policies. Our version of that for BitRobot is like, cool, how do we crowdsource the world to do this for robots in general?
So I am interested in the economic model here. It sounds like that's like part of the big innovation you're bringing. You're saying you're using blockchain for payments at some level. Is there a token involved in this? Incentives? How is that whole thing working?
Yeah. So right now we haven't yet launched a token, but the plan is to launch on Solana and incentivize people around the world to do tasks, and initially with points, but then later on with a full economy.
Can you paint me the picture of what the future of human labor looks like?
Small questions.
Are we going to be doing any physical labor?
God, I hope not, man. Jeez, I'm not built for physical labor.
I mean, I think there's a bunch. Like as with anything, it's like I think our lives will adapt in a way that will feel much more gradual and normalized. And so I think the chores example is like an easier one for us to map to,
right?
Because like robots have a bunch of limitations too. So like there's battery life to these things, and like they are physically heavy, and like you do for safety reasons want to constrain like what can these robots like. That robot, if it goes like haywire, will smack something and cause.
I'm pretty sure I've seen somebody strap a gun to these things before, right? Like, I mean, you could get kind of wild, right?
Yeah. So like, I think we're gonna want to constrain robots in certain ways, but I think like the example I was using about chores is like I think that idea will be much more normalized. Of like, there's tasks that it will seem odd that humans are doing them, just because it's like, why wouldn't you? Or like cleaning bathrooms. I joke about this a lot, but like. In 2030, I think the winning mayoral run in New York City will be like, I'm going to hire a fleet of robots to just clean all the public restrooms. And like, it's things that like you could do today, but no one really wants to go do it. But like, it will make sense for a robot to be doing that in the future.
I am much more willing to be an early adopter of the stuff than I think Josh is here. I don't have any robots in my house right now, though I'm very intrigued by at least having a vacuum that's going around. But the idea that this could just take a lot of the really frustrating labor of life off my hands is, I think, really what I want technology to do in a lot of ways. Though I also don't have 3 young kids running around the house that I think maybe.
It's the in the home thing that we're like, send these things out to clean the streets. Like, I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I would say right now a lot of these robot companies actually they're checking like, do you have elderly, do you have kids?
Okay.
Like if so, we're not putting the bot in your home right now.
My 3-year-old would tackle that the second he saw it, and it would be done for
Yeah.
I would love to see that. It'd be incredible.
One thing that I thought 1x did really nicely, and I think you're seeing more robotics manufacturers do this, is actually think about like safety first. So like 1x, because they don't have like actuators in the joints, they use like a tendon system. It actually can't generate the same force, so you don't have the risk of like it smacking grandma and causing real damage. But also like instead of having it be like coated in like metal or plastic, they have like silicon or rubber. So like you'll see evolutions as these get. So far, most of robotics has been in research labs, and so as these move more into like the consumer domain, I think you'll see people prioritize these other features for like, okay, how do we make this safe and not cause harm and so on.
Well, what's one of these things cost these days?
It's a big range, but it's dropping. So funnily enough, about half the cost of this Unitree is like the hands itself.
Okay.
So hands are like very expensive. So you'll see like the base models usually are just like nubs of like this or whatever. So I think you can get a robot, I mean, on the low end around like 5,000, but that's like without the SDK or anything else. Probably around 30,000 for something that's like useful. And then maybe like double that if you add hands. But, like, the cost moved down really quickly. So like, I think you should expect to see like costs dropping. Anecdotally, I've heard people say like probably on the order of like 10,000 is what we should expect when these things are like scaling up.
Right.
Right now, these are all like very low production volumes. Even Unitree, who's like maybe the largest manufacturer of robots right now, or like humanoids, is doing like thousands of units at most.
Okay.
So it's like nothing is at real scale.
Interesting. I think Josh was referencing, we've had a number of conversations with folks that made us realize that we are very much in the dark here in North America where we live. Like the sort of application of robots is far smaller there than in China, where I think we had the IUKI founder on who's talking about, I guess, embodied data or whatever he's talking about. And he's just like, I think you go to China and these things are delivering your room service, right? And that there's he almost sort of implied that there was almost like an incentive not to be propagandizing how effective automation is in many of these countries because they kind of want to dominate these markets. I'm curious how do you, are these things coming to North America faster? Like, are we very, very far behind? Are we just kind of in the dark ages if we're just living a Western-centric worldview?
I mean, like, I think 1X, Sunday, a number of these, they have San Francisco presences. I think they're looking to put their initial robots in 2026 in the US. But yeah, of course, there's, like more Unitrees out there. And also, I learned when I joined this company that there's actually a long tail of like 30, 50 other robotic humanoid companies out of China that exist and maybe are like slightly behind Unitree. So yeah, I think it's definitely something though we're seeing a lot about, like how can you create the supply chain that exists in China, in the US, and enable that.
And I guess the big debate is sort of purpose-built robots versus humanoid robots. I'm curious, Reese, clearly you see humanoid as being the interesting one. What's behind that?
Personally, I don't know if humanoids are the end state.
Okay.
I started there, and then I think having seen more robots, I'm like much more convinced that like purpose-built or having robots that are like human, like adjacent maybe. So like the Sunday design, instead of having legs, they have like a wheeled base.
Right.
And like that actually seems much more practical. Granted, it can't go upstairs, but like you don't have to pay for legs, and like it can do most of the movement. It's just as like nimble.
Like it's probably not vacuuming my house because I have a robot vacuum that's super cheap and doing it better.
Or they could put in the base a robot vacuum and mop. And like I think depending on what the use case is, like the price point will matter, because like not having legs can save you like thousands of dollars.
Right.
So like I think that will make it much more consistent.
No legs, no hands, and you get some
like
cheap things.
Grippers instead of hands is another thing.
Yeah. And so I think like that's going to be the interesting thing of like where do we land on this efficient frontier? I think if it takes longer to solve the embodied like AI side of this, I think then it will matter much more of like get the hardware costs down so that you can get it in more consumer locations, so you can get that long tail of data that you need to solve the harder AI problems.
Right. I'm realizing that I'm hiding myself behind this robot, which it's good. No, don't change it at all. I like this fact right now. All right, so you guys have a couple more battles happening here. What's the thinking behind kind of introducing it to Breakpoint in this sort of fun, competitive way?
Yeah, I mean, so our development lab, Protobots, spun off this UFB, so Ultimate Fighting Bots is what it's called. It's now a different team. They've been running shows in LA, San Francisco, sold out. Their next show is at a Consumer Electronics Show in January. And so we just think like entertainment and media is just a really cool way to engage with robots, and so wanted to bring that. And we're actually highlighting a couple of our other ecosystem experiences as well, but I think the fights are definitely getting the most attention here,
as they always do.
All right, so if you're here live with us at Breakpoint, make sure you go check that out. I think it's in the main arena over here. Is that right?
So in the plaza, we're calling it the Robot Arena, and so if you go towards the lunch stands, the Bonk inflatable, you'll see it.
Amazing. Well, thank you for what great way to close off the morning live stream here at Breakpoint 2025. You got that's so good. Thanks for bringing it by. I think it's fascinating. The Jetsons, man, they're coming. It just took an extra 60 years.
Yeah.
100%.
Where can people find out more? We should chill it here a little bit.
BitRobot.ai is our website. Our Twitter would be at BitRobot Network.
Awesome. We'll make sure we include that in some of the tweets and clips we share out here. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today, and stay safe out there. I guess this is, what we're going to see. We saw it's interesting to see certain people move around these spaces with bodyguards because, like, welcome to crypto. It's maybe my future bodyguard here. I don't know. It'll be you walking behind the robot. Walking. Yeah, exactly. Amazing, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll come check out the show later.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for coming.
Metaplex. This clip brought to you by Metaplex. Launch tokens and NFTs on Solana and the SVM.